with justice. Mitchell said, cinephile sounds far too much like a crime, and Duncan said that instead of having words to describe sounds, we should just make the sounds with our mouths and call it words. So,
Automatically of everything.
Duncan Butcher is writer, musician, and dungeon master, not the sexy kind. He typically works in short stories or essays, moving between sci-fi, fantasy, and reckless oversharing. Whether working in music or prose, he aims for a kind of personal sincerity, often constructed with absurd settings or ideas. You can find his work in Glass and Scratch That, and his misguided attempts to become an influencer on TikTok. He is currently studying creative writing and economics at QUT. Mitchell Brett is a third-year creative writing and education student who is hoping that a second publication will justify the descriptor of prolific. Please come and welcome me to the weekend.
So this piece is a bit strange because in the theme of restrictions, we decided to write it, both of us writing one story, one of us writing a section, and passing it to the other. We didn't communicate at all in between passing these sections back and forth. We didn't communicate about how long the sections would be, anything about the setting, narrative, genre, tone, nothing at all.
Yeah, we just kind of made fun of each other for how little we were committing to like the actual info.
Yeah.
And then pretending like we knew where it was going to go. Yeah. I was pretending.
Yes. No, and I think afterwards we debriefed, and we were like, we had totally different ideas in mind. But you get to decide which of us is more crazy than the other. We'll each be reading the bits that we wrote, so you can judge us based on what we wrote. So yeah, this is the cover. Ready to go?
Absolutely.
Cool. It would be heresy to say it aloud, but sometimes Fallon felt like a god. The church would say that all he did was create a vessel, something that the divine would imbue with power and bring to life. Whether that was actually happened was irrelevant to Fallon. What he observed was much simpler. He carved things, and they came to life.
It was mesmerizing, in a way, to see how far they'd walk. He stood atop a podium near the center of town, lines of hopefuls spreading about him in all directions as they filtered their way through the dingy streets, clutching to their vessels with a growing rapidity. While orderly at first, the crowd grew only more desperate as they closed the distance, cries of his name piercing through the heavens. Some bowed in his presence, others stripped themselves of their modesty. Fallon could only smile. They loved him, and he loved what he could make of them.
First, he would give them a show. It was about the balance. Give them too much and they became entitled. But if you kept it scarce, just a little bit at a time, well then they would see it as a miracle. He picked one of the faces, a young man at the front, features coated with grime, but tracks where the tears had carved through. Guards grabbed the man, escorted him to the front of Fallon's podium, the crowd roaring now that they saw something was happening. Fallon pulled 2 silver nails from the pouch at his waist, drew his rune-carved knife. This one would be about the spectre.
He stretched his arm outwards, beckoning. So Nate. The man tripped forward, scrambling up the podium's edge, and throwing himself at the floor before Fallon's feet. He sat with his eyes averted, arms clenched tight around the vessel as he rocked back and forth, muttering incoherently. Fallon brushed at the man's head, nails held loose. It was a simple vessel, dignified. It lacked the symmetrical geometry that had become the fad style as of late, instead featuring a set of waves that snaked delicately around its ridges, a dull metallic grey. Fallon danced his fingers at the man's arms, cradling his hands softly in his own before leaning down to whisper, "You will be beautiful." In one practiced motion, Fallon stabbed the nail into the man's hand, the crowd erupting into a deafening roar. Never want to undersell it, he used the butt of the knife to hammer it in further, the man trembling as he muttered his many thanks. Fallon smiled, slipping the point of the second nail beneath the vessel's roots. "You're more than welcome."
With the second nail in place, Fallon turned his attention to the final step in the process. With his knife, he carved a rune onto the flat space on the top of the vessel. Though the vessel was entirely metal, Fallon felt no resistance to all the blow. When he had finished carving, he grabbed his subject's mangled hand and held it over the vessel, letting the blood drip onto the rune. There was a flash of blue light, so bright it would have blinded Fallon if he hadn't closed his eyes. Everything was quiet for a moment, the crowd erupted, cheering and waving. The vessel still glowed faintly. Its surface, once inanimate metal, now twisting and writhing. The man in front of Fallon stood stock still. He looked down at the nail embedded in his palm with curiosity. He poked at the ragged flesh, gingerly at first, but then pressing harder. He stopped and smiled. Fallon had seen this man before, so he had known which room to pick. This subject had been troubled by persistent pain in his back, so Fallon's gift to him had been simple. He had taken pain away. The man's eyes welled with tears as he was ushered away by the guards. Fallon looked at the vessel he still held in his hands. He had gotten exactly what he had wanted.
Vessel held aloft. He walked down the stairs, the crowd parting expectantly as Fallon stepped amongst them. He carved a path in their wake, the metal swimming in his hands. They awed at the sight of him, and he awed at the sight of his creation, alive and more real than any of them had ever hoped to become. Fallon stared deeply into it, sight lost in the sea of his being as he moved further into town, towards the steps that he alone was sanctioned to use. They wrapped around the base of their great monument, a tower so great it threatened to breach the heavens. The masses gathered around them, arms raised and voices begging for his services, begging that he would choose them next or that he could imbue them as well. He scoffed, beginning with mine. It did not matter to Fallon which he chose. It mattered that he was the one to choose them. He snaked around the tower's edge, stairs carrying him higher and higher into the sky, the ground growing smaller as voices faded into nothingness. He sped his pace. The divine was waiting.
Fallon's followers had given away much over the years. The vessel in his hands held pain. He had taken pain away from many in the past, fear and memory from many as well. Fallon arrived at the top of the stairs. The vessels were arrayed in neat rows in the open air of the tower's roof. Hundreds of them. They had all been spent, drained of any power they once had. He placed the new vessel on the altar and began his prayer. He had prayed the same prayer every day for years now. He blessed the vessel, offered it to the Almighty, and made his request. After a few seconds, light drained from its surface, the offering accepted. Then, a quiet echo from beyond. Fallon heard his daughter's voice again. That's it.
For like over, no, I just threw it to you.
I was like, I'm sure.